I'm going to be talking about trolls, which isn't like the most cheerful topic in the world. So kind of to try and keep in a little bit with the gaming theme, I am going to talk about games, but the games that I'm talking about aren't necessarily fun games. There is a game in my keynote. So one of my slides is a picture from a relatively obscure film. So if somebody tweets the film, the correct film that the slide is from, you will get a very small, very, very disappointing prize. Okay, so I'll wait, and good luck to you all with that. Okay. So I'm also really excited that Ian Livingstone's speaking this year. It's fantastic because, like many people in the room, I grew up on these adventure books, and Ian very, very kindly let me deface the cover of one of them for my keynote talk today. Okay, so I'm going to start with Tay. Tay is Microsoft's artificial intelligence bot, and she was launched on Twitter on the 23rd of March in 2016. The text on Tay's official website, which actually isn't accessible at the moment, stated, Tay is an artificial intelligence chatbot developed to experiment with and conduct research on conversational understanding. Tay is designed to engage and entertain people where they connect with each other online through casual and playful conversation. The more you chat with Tay, the smarter she gets. So the experience can be more personalised for you. Within 16 hours, Tay had become a racist conspiracy theorist sex bot, and Microsoft had to take her offline. So how did this happen? First of all, the Microsoft account was targeted by Twitter users who basically fed Tay on hate speech, discrimination, conspiracy theories, a lot of conspiracy theories, and a lot of lewd text as well, which he then mimicked and reproduced. So Microsoft did seem to pick up on the fact that this might be a bit contentious, and they did seem to put some blocks in things. So I think Gamergate was one of the kind of keywords that they blocked against, but they didn't seem to consider the possibility of Tay being targeted by a wider range of inappropriate interactions of being trolled. So in Tay, Microsoft ended up releasing a mostly filter-free curator and amplifier of the language of the users that interacted with it. And many users were lightning quick to understand and make use of this to turn Tay into a mouthpiece for hate and obscenity. And then the story was quickly picked up on news sites, who gleefully reported their outrage at the depravity of trolls and at Microsoft's bot becoming, amongst other things, a Holocaust denier within a couple of hours of being live. So while the account was shut down, screenshots of Tay posting and mouthing really grim things were spread all over the internet for our entertainment. So Tay is actually currently back up, because this is a screenshot I took yesterday. But as you can see, the account is now private on Twitter, and you can't follow Tay or access her tweets unless you've been approved by the Microsoft people who are managing that account now. Okay. I'm beginning with that story because it's pretty representative of a range of trolling motifs. It is practically a troll morality tale, and I know before people say it, nobody likes a morality tale. It is not possible to say what the range of motivations of all the people involved with that Tay story are. We can speculate that some of them were interested in attacking Microsoft or suspicious of the commercial motivations behind privatisation and personalisation. Some people might have seen this as an opportunity to get discriminatory messages up and spread misinformation. Lulz, though, are what drive trolls. Lulz are the currency of trolls, the social and cultural artefacts of trolls. So Whitney Phillips released an excellent book last year called This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things, which I'd recommend to you all. And that book looks at lulz, obviously, and she defines them as lulz as lol transfigured through the anguish of the laughed-at victim, which is a pretty good description. And lulz are what knit together a disparate and autonomous group of people who may only meet each other anonymously, who may only meet each other once or twice in passing, or may never meet each other at all. So using extremism, obscenity and conspiracy theories, the corporate experiment in AI was taken down within hours, and the trolls got their handiwork reproduced and publicised globally. And this gaming of reporters and social commentators, the manufacture of views, is a win for media outlets because they need quick-to-read outrage to increase their traffic. Trolls love to troll the media, and trolls love to get their stories and memes reproduced in the media. And the media loves to promote sensationalistic and outrageous stories, even if the number of actual people involved or impacted is very, very small, and in some cases, even if the story is totally made up. So also typical of this story is the lack of interest on all sides as to what is actually going on here, or because trolls. Because trolls is always a win for trolls, because it means journalists are taking them at face value, journalists are missing the joke, and journalists are becoming a part of the joke. Of course, not all trolling involves hate speech, discrimination, threats, obscenity, or conspiracy theories. The most universally agreed on aim of trolling is to disrupt, to confront, and to provoke individuals and communities online for the purposes of amusement, for lulz. And trolling runs from very innocuous pranking, so we can think of rickrolling, which is like an old person's meme reference, so everybody in the room should have heard about it, to behaviour which challenges general sentiment of the beliefs of a group, to online harassment and bullying. And some trolls indeed only target other trolls, which are probably my favourite trolls. In the vast majority of cases, trolls will make use of anonymity. They may pretend to be other actual or invented people. They may act out being sympathetic. They may take entirely opposing viewpoints to what they would hold in their day-to-day life. They might ask very naive questions or swear blatantly untrue facts are true in order to frustrate you or to make you seem like an even bigger idiot for taking them seriously. They might provide misleading or bad advice, or perfectly just talk off topic. But understanding this is also not to be naive and not to imply that the extremism we see in a lot of trolling is just coincidental or arbitrary or part of the kind of troll arsenal. Trolls are a really diverse group. Their interests, ethics and actions are not alike. This means that while some trolls are genuinely racist, homophobic, sexist or otherwise discriminatory, equally there will be trolls who are using hate speech and extremist views because they know this is what will get them outrage, offence and upset reactions. In this view, the sentiments being fed to the bot were inconsequential in themselves. They're just the weapons that were closest to hand. And some might even view the use of abusive language as part of a bigger game, that only idiots would agree with the sentiment being expressed and mouthed by Tay. Some will frame it in terms of a characteristically insincere idea of freedom of speech. And it's not surprising at all that very soon after the takedown, the hashtag #FreeTay was born, and that was used to protest against the corporate lobotomisation of Tay and her censorship. And you can look on Twitter now, there's still Free Tay people trying to get Tay back into the realm of language that everybody uses on Twitter, including the trolls. The key problem with this kind of equivalence, though, saying that it's just a kind of tool in the arsenal of trolling to use abusive, discriminatory, hate speech, those kinds of languages. It's essentially one form of attack, of insincere attack, is as good as any other, or all groups are treated equally through attack. The problem with it is that there's no room for acknowledgement that specific groups are actually being harmed on a daily basis by discrimination. And the reproduction of hate speech, whether it's sincere or not, adds to what is already there. It helps to normalise marginalisation, and it obviously may be the cause of fresh antagonism and harm. So Tay is a safe example. Tay is not a person. It doesn't have feelings, it doesn't have a history, it doesn't have personal doubts and anxieties, it isn't sometimes a bit tired and a bit short-tempered, and it doesn't struggle to interpret subtly codified online behaviour or take sexist, racist or faith-targeted abuse personally. Many of us here today appreciate and have benefited from working in open contexts online, whether it's through blogging, online courses, or through our learning networks on social media sites. Talks from the conference today are being streamed so that people who aren't here with us today in person can watch online. And people in the room, people viewing at distance, and people who aren't viewing can follow the conference, all of the talks using the hashtag on Twitter as well. The video and the tweets will be provided to provide access to people who can't join us at this point in time. We're wringing as a community as much possible value out of the hard work, insight, effort of everybody involved. We're creating new resources that are going to be shared and developed. This isn't to say that there's no place for closed conversations or that everything that we do as educators must be done in the open. But it is a recognition of the enormous value that sharing our practice, thoughts and resources accessibly, discussing and developing these collectively can provide for us as individuals. A commitment to open education is an ethical gesture. It's a commitment to the importance of access to education, research, debate and ideas for all, not just those within designated education communities and not just those within our known networks. It's a commitment to the value of co-production and the development of work across not already established networks. And it's an understanding that our work might be of benefit to people we don't know in ways that we can't imagine, as well as to an understanding that we may benefit from the insight of strangers. It's also a commitment to putting ourselves into contexts that we don't necessarily control, to having our views challenged and disagreed with, to being interpreted in ways that we may not be happy with. At its most basic, open educational practice is about creating, using and sharing work accessibly, which typically means online, across network publics. It goes beyond just using and producing openly licensed resources, OERs, but OER remains essential to it as a practice. Open licenses give permission with some requirements for others to interact, take on, make use and develop your work. Open educational practice is about making our work accessible to others, not just the people who agree with us. I'd extend the definition to include practice that is concerned with who gets to publicly engage, who gets to speak and be heard in our context. Trolls are typically anonymous or pseudo-anonymous. This doesn't mean that anonymity is a bad thing. People who are not trolling use and need anonymity online. They're anonymous so they can talk openly and frankly about issues that they otherwise wouldn't. They use anonymity to keep themselves safe. They're anonymous to guard their privacy, to avoid online surveillance and commodification. They use anonymity to play or to protest against ideas or governments they don't agree with. They're anonymous to make comments and join in conversations that they otherwise would not. Many of us here today have had the luxury of not having to grow up online. And it's unsurprising that anonymous, so for example 4chan, and ephemeral, so for example Snapchat, online platforms have grown in popularity at the same time that the importance and the increasing insistence on online authenticity has flourished. And while there are professional and personal benefits to being yourself online, these may depend on if the kind of person you really are is the right kind of person. And if that person fits in. being yourself online linked to a physical identity may actually be a risk, or it may actually be a privilege. So how do we address this? How do we address this knotty issue of trying to maintain space, trying to ensure that people whose voices are getting marginalised by mainstream discourses, by how interactions commonly occur online, are able to take part in that conversation, while respecting the fact that not everybody is always going to agree with us, and respecting the fact that that's actually a good thing. So there are a few resources that have come out of particularly Gamergate, which happened last year. If you don't know about the history of Gamergate, then it's dizzying, but I do advise you take it, have a look, and try and work your way through a little bit. These two resources, Speak Up and Say Safer, from Feminist Frequency, are designed basically to support women, but everybody, they're good for everybody, in taking steps and thinking about kind of how you keep yourself safe online, how you prevent things like doxing, where information that you might not be aware is publicly available about you, like your phone number, like your home address, is publicised through various attacks, but also kind of more generalist kind of security measures and steps as well about online engagement. The other Trollbusters resource that's listed here is a site that's come about recently, which is an interesting idea. It mobilises peer support, particularly for women writers who are being attacked online. And it's an interesting model, I think, of supporting people on those platforms in a just-in-time kind of way. Perhaps more interestingly to me, is a kind of a framework digital literacy approach. So one of the ways that we can consider navigating these differences is through the idea of digital well-being. This image here will be familiar to quite a few of you. It's Helen Beetham's work on JISC's digital competencies framework. And I'm particularly interested in how Helen positions and prioritises digital identity and well-being in relation to the other competencies that we have here. You can see it's on the outer circle. It washes across the different contexts that are there. So she picks out how our lives are saturated with and lived through digital environments within and across modes of participation. In the same kind of vein, the Welsh Government is taking a similar approach to supporting children and young people through the new National Digital Competencies Framework, which is made up of 4 strands, one of which is digital citizenship, which includes identity, digital rights and online behaviours. It's an amazing piece of work that's being pushed out in Wales. If you haven't seen it, please do go and have a look online. A little bit clunky to navigate, I think, at the moment, but an incredible countrywide approach to actually looking at and taking forward digital well-being. We're living in a time that a lot of people can characterise as kind of post-truth at the moment, and it can seem that everyone and everything is trolling. Certainly a huge range of groups, including political and corporate groups, have adopted the aesthetics and the tactics of trolling. And these include political and corporate groups who are trying to infiltrate communities, who are trying to disrupt them, who are trying to sway public opinion, and to generate attention and discussion, to generate money and clicks. But I think it is really, really important that we do stop labelling all behaviours that we don't like as trolling. It's a way of minimising the harm caused and the unacceptability of some activities without actually addressing it. The range of troll behaviours and motivations makes pinning down trolling extremely difficult, but at the same time, it makes calling all behaviours online that we find offensive, so bullying, harassment, death threats, other threats of violence, trolling. Not just these though, but also political disagreement, defence of others' freedoms, and viewpoints that aren't our own. All of these get wrapped up and dismissed as trolling at times. So the ways in which troll is currently being used, equating trolling with something that we don't agree with or take offence at, should immediately alert us to some of the dangers here. Solutions that work by taking away our anonymity and erode privacy to stop trolls typically boil down to all of us being presented with the blunt threat of, if you've done nothing wrong, you've got nothing to hide. So when so much trolling exacerbates and adds to inequality, how we address that inequality needs to focus very strongly, I feel, not just on the trolls, troll behaviour, banning trolls, stopping trolls, but actually on those people who are being silenced, and not just on the people doing the silencing. So the solution with Tay is to close accounts, to use only protected forums for conversations, to have our identities verified. It can't be the best solution that we have to offer people in those spaces. One of the things that I think we need to take forward is really seriously looking at these issues together and coming up with broader, more creative and more effective solutions. Thank you very much.